Most people believe that the dream of owning a home is completely dead. You hear it everywhere. People tell you that unless you have private equity money backing you, or you're pulling down a massive corporate salary, you're going to be renting a crumbling box forever. The math just does not work anymore. It is repeated so often it feels like gravity. But here's the problem. That whole idea is based on a set of rules that you do not actually have to play by. Over the last few months, we started looking closely at those rules. We found a family, grandparents raising their 3 grandkids on a fixed income. They were one rent hike away from losing absolutely everything. And we decided to find out what happens when you stop fighting the traditional housing market and just bypass it entirely. We did not just want to fix up a house for them. We wanted to uncover the financial loophole that turns a condemned, rotting piece of wood into a permanent, debt-free fortress. What we found completely reframed how I look at money, real estate, and survival. They have been living in this cramped rental for years. The floor slopes down toward the kitchen. The windows barely shut when the wind blows. And every single month, like clockwork, a massive chunk of their fixed income vanishes into a landlord's bank account. If you sit down and actually do the math over a decade, it is hundreds of thousands of dollars just gone. Evaporated. And for what? A roof that leaks when it rains and walls that let the winter cold right through. The grandparents, Arthur and Helen, took in their 3 grandkids when nobody else could. They stepped up. They did the right thing. But the economy does not really care if you do the right thing. According to recent housing data from the Joint Center for Housing Studies, over 21 million American households spend more than 30% of their income on rent. This is not just a sad story. It is the statistical norm. They were trapped in a mathematical certainty. You cannot save for a down payment when your rent goes up by 10% every single year while your pension stays exactly the same. The system is perfectly designed to keep them exactly where they are. But when you look at their budget, you realize something strange. Over the years, they actually paid enough money to own a home. They had already bought a house. They just bought it for their landlord. They had the financial capacity, just not the way the banks tell you to do it. Look at a physical rent check. That piece of paper is the trap. So we had to figure out a way to break it. Every time we looked at a normal starter home in their town, a place that just needed a little paint and carpet, it was bought in cash by an LLC before we even parked the car to go look at it. It is not just rich guys in suits buying these places up. It is algorithms. They scan the listings, calculate the rental yield, and wire the cash. The National Association of Realtors notes that institutional buyers account for a massive chunk of single-family home purchases right now. They set the baseline price, and regular people just cannot compete with a machine that has millions of dollars in cash ready to deploy. Have you ever checked out a normal, entry-level house only to find out a corporation bought it in cash before you could even make an offer? Let me know down in the comments because I'm seeing it everywhere and it is destroying towns. So we stopped looking at starter homes. If the system is rigged at the baseline, you have to go beneath it. You have to find the things the algorithms ignore. We started looking at houses the LLCs were terrified of. Properties so distressed, so completely wrecked that banks would not even approve a traditional mortgage for them. We found a place that had been abandoned for 4 years. The roof was essentially caved in. It smelled like damp earth, mold, and regret. The front porch was falling off. We bought the house nobody wanted. We got it for a fraction of what a normal house costs because no bank would ever touch it. But the real problem was not buying it. It was figuring out how to rebuild it without spending the money we just save by avoiding the regular market. When you watch house flipping shows on television, they make it seem like the materials are the really expensive part. They show you fancy countertops and expensive hardwood floors. But here is what researchers actually found when they analyzed construction economics. You aren't really paying for wood, pipes, and drywall. Studies show that labor and contractor markups often make up 50 to 70% of a renovation bill. You are paying a massive premium for someone else's time, their truck, their insurance, and their management fees. By stripping away those management fees and doing the heavy lifting ourselves, the actual cost of materials was shockingly low. A sheet of drywall is just a few dollars. 2x4 studs are cheap. We were buying the raw ingredients of a house, not the finished meal. We bought the cheapest, ugliest box in town, and we used sweat equity to close the gap between a rotting structure and a beautiful home. We spent our nights pulling down ruined drywall and hauling away trash. But sweat equity only gets you so far if the layout of the house is fundamentally broken. And this floor plan was a complete disaster. It was a maze of tiny, dark rooms that made absolutely no sense. Normally, to fix a layout this bad, you hire an architect. They come in, measure everything, and charge you thousands of dollars just to draft some ideas on paper. But we live in a different world now. We did not hire a firm. We fed the raw dimensions of this ruined house into an AI modeling tool. I literally sat on my laptop at 2 in the morning, plugged in the measurements, and told the software we needed an open layout. We used the system to rapidly prototype different floor plans without spending a dime. And the software caught something we entirely missed: a load-bearing loophole. It showed us how to move one single non-structural wall instead of tearing down the main central corridor. That one suggestion saved us nearly $10,000 in structural engineering costs and steel beams. The AI found a hidden path through the house that we could not see. The plans were perfect. The drywall went up. The flooring went down. The house was finally coming together. It looked like a real home. But right before we painted the walls, we realized something awful. Giving them this house could actually ruin them. Here is the thing about property that nobody ever tells you. If you hand someone a free, newly renovated house, you also hand them a massive tax bill. The county assessor does not care if the house was a gift. Historical tax assessment data shows that a newly renovated home can trigger a reassessment that doubles or even triples the annual property tax overnight. Arthur and Helen are on a strict, fixed retirement income. Every dollar is accounted for. If we gave them the keys, the new property taxes and utility costs for a larger, nicer house would drain their accounts faster than their old rent ever did. We were about to accidentally put them in a completely different kind of debt, a debt to the state. If you didn't realize that a free house could actually bankrupt someone through hidden holding costs and taxes, hit the like button, because it completely caught us off guard. We realized that giving away a house is easy, but making it safe to keep is the actual challenge. We had to find a way to legally shield them from those holding costs. And what we found changes the entire way you look at property ownership and building real wealth. We could not just hand them a deed and walk away. We had to build a financial fortress around them. First, we tackled the utility bills. We installed solar panels that we sourced directly from a wholesaler, cutting out the middleman markup. That completely wiped out their monthly electricity bill, freeing up a crucial couple of $100 a month. And then we worked with a lawyer to put the entire property into an irrevocable trust. This specific estate planning tool does a few magical things. It protects the asset from certain liabilities. And more importantly, it ensures that when Arthur and Helen eventually pass away, the house goes directly to the grandkids without going through probate or incurring massive legal fees. The system is entirely designed to tax you when you buy, tax you while you own, and tax you when you die. The trust stops that cycle cold. When we finally brought Arthur, Helen, and the kids to the property, we did not just hand them a shiny new key. They walked through the front door, and the smell of mold was gone. It smelled like fresh paint and clean wood. They saw the sunlight pouring through windows that actually shut properly. But they did not just see a new kitchen or a nice living room. They saw the permanent end of the rent checks. They saw real, tangible safety. We eliminated their absolute biggest liability and turned it into a generation-spanning asset. The math finally worked in their favor for the first time in their entire lives. Watching them cry in the kitchen was incredible. It was the best feeling in the world. But the most important part of this story is not just what happened to them. It is what this means for you. Real estate arbitrage relies on finding the gap between what something is right now and what it could be in the future. We found the absolute ugliest gap in our local market. We intentionally bypassed the institutional buyers by looking where they refused to look. We stripped out the massive labor markups by doing the physical work. We used modern, free digital tools to redesign it perfectly. And we used boring, standard legal structures to protect it from the government. You do not need a YouTube channel to do this. You do not need to be a millionaire. You just have to stop playing the game the exact way the banks and the corporations want you to play it. You have to stop looking where everyone else is looking, because that is where the prices are rigged. Look for the distress. Look for the ugly, abandoned properties. Understand the true, raw cost of materials versus the inflated cost of labor. Next week, I am breaking down a completely different loophole we found in a forgotten commercial property on the edge of town. You will not want to miss how the math on that one works out, because it is even crazier than this one. Hit subscribe right now, and I will see you then.